Hello there, everypony, and welcome to episode 13 of the Brony Bookclub. This week we have on our guest Corey, who is the author of the Vinyl Scratch Tapes, kind of a classic in the community. And of course, as always, we have on Sam, the co-host.
Yep, as always.
Ever faithful. So, this week, is the first time we're not doing a theme week based off of a genre. We're doing it based off a character. In this case, actually two characters, Vinyl and Octavia, because you can't really have a Vinyl week and then have an Octavia week. I mean, they have to share the space. Apparently, Sam actually managed to find one with an Octavia fic with no Vinyl, but all of mine have both of them. So I did split them up because there's a difference between a Vinyl Octavia fic and an Octavia Vinyl fic. Very fine difference. So, let's start off, as we always do. Corey, we got some questions for you to answer.
Okay.
Be very afraid.
Be very afraid. What tag do you see on a fanfic that really makes you want to read it?
Comedy. It's always been comedy. Basically, because that's really what that's the kind of stuff I like to read in general, not just in this specific fandom, I gravitate more towards things that have, if they're not entirely humor-based, that they have some element of humor in them. Like, Terry Pratchett is one of my favorite authors.
Well, there's a question about that coming up, so...
okay. But that's really just what I tend to gravitate towards, and that's why a lot of the writing that I write is good, and there's plenty of that is humor, so I guess that's why I do so well with that, or at least I like to consider that I do pretty well with that. It's just because that's what I like to read most of the time.
Okay, doke. I can definitely agree with that. I love comedy fics. So, what tag do you see that really makes you not want to read it? What is your least favorite tag?
I hate to say this, but adventure is... I kind of gravitate away for it, and it's a different reason than you're probably thinking. It's not that I don't like adventure stories. I love it. It's just that most adventure stories in this fandom tend to be extremely intimidatingly long, and I know I'll never get a chance to read through all of it. Like, Dangerous Business Going Out Your Door is really long. Fallout Equestria is about the size of, 3 copies of War and Peace taped together. It's very daunting. Like, most of the fanfics that I do read are one-shots, and it's mostly because with my work schedule I don't have a lot of free time, and what free time I do have I try to spend writing. So, and one-shots you can read that in one sitting, whereas something like Fallout Equestria will kind of put you out for about a year and a half.
I can actually really agree with that. I am going to read Fallout Equestria soon because Sam just finished it recently.
Finally. Seriously.
Yeah, so
and it was
I'm going to have to
absolutely amazing. I loved it. But see, it was honestly, I don't know that I would have been able to read it had I not, I got the PDF of it and put that on my Android phone. And, without that ability to just kind of whip out my phone and read it for a bit wherever I was, I don't know that I would have gotten through it so easily. But, yeah, that was...
You're talking to a man who's seen an anime that's 161 episodes long with 12 episode OVAs, and I've seen all of it at least 3 times all the way through. I can read Fallout Equestria.
Okay, have fun with that.
I will. There's another one that's always haunted me. The name is not coming to me. It's a big adventure fic for the fandom. Antipodes. I read a little bit of Antipodes, and I was actually enjoying it, but it's so long, and it's adventure, and I'm like, I could read this. But I could read a bunch of other fics instead, and I still go with that.
And Antipodes is another one that I... That's another one that I haven't read either. I've seen it mentioned a lot, and I know some of the people who actually voice act the audio adaptation of Vinyl Scratch Tapes even work on the audio adaptation of that, and I've never even started reading that one.
There's an audio adaptation? I might just listen to that.
You didn't know that, man? I thought... They're more popular than I am.
What?
Really?
Crazy. The only thing I know about Antipodes is I know it involves airships, and I'm like, that's so awesome.
Oh, it does? I did not know that. I'll have to pick that up.
Like Final Fantasy-style airships. I'm just like, that's so cool.
Okay.
or like Skies of Arcadia, that kind of thing.
I could just hear Kavonde yelling at me, "Why aren't you reading what the one he's always recommending? That's literally like it's one novel, and there's gonna be two more, but it's all about Flight of the Alicorn." He keeps wanting. I'm gonna read Flight of the Alicorn. Kavonde, shut up.
Oh, hey, right, man. There's too freaking many fanfics to read. This is ridiculous.
Shut up.
Okay.
I know.
So, how'd you get the idea for vinyl scratch tapes?
Well, there's actually an interesting story in that.
We're hoping.
Yeah. When I actually got into this fandom, vinyl scratch tapes was not the first fanfic I wrote for it. I had written fanfiction for other things before. I wrote and never finished a really long fanfic for Hey Arnold, but that's not what we're here talking about now. So the first fanfic that I tried writing for this it actually Trixie starred in it just because I liked her character, and it was basically a crossover between My Little Pony and the works of H.P. Lovecraft, which sounds a lot more awesome than it actually ended up being because I didn't have a plan for it at the beginning, and I went into one of those situations where I kind of hit the wall, but you've already published the first few chapters, so now you have to just tuck your tail in between your legs and just stop because I had nowhere to go with it. And the way that vinyl scratch tapes came about is I wanted to deliver some exposition about what was happening because in the fic, catastrophic things were happening because the great old ones were waking up and everything. And I thought the best way to deliver that was a radio show, kind of like how in Fallout 3 you have Three Dogs character, someone just delivering exposition about what's happening in a way that doesn't sound like exposition.
Three Dog! Oh!
So I was I had recently seen the episode where Vinyl Scratch appears for a few seconds, and I really liked her design and everything. And so I was I'll just make it her, and I'll just make her an over the top Howard Stern type kind of radio personality. And when I came up with ideas with that, it was way more interesting than the actual story that was supposed to be just one scene in. So I'm just well, I'll just write this and stop the other one. Which another project I'm working on actually had its genesis in making just one thing for another project and ended up being a more popular thing. So I guess it's my style to take one idea and just running with it.
If me and my editor work hard enough on it, I'll have the exact same thing happen to me, so that'll be enjoyable. So, what's your favorite aspect of the vinyl scratch tapes?
Really, the part that I ended up liking the most and how it came out was just I worked really hard to try and make each character in the story have some kind of depth to them. It originally started out I was just basically using it as a vehicle for humor. I had thought I'd like some of their personalities, but most of it came about while I was writing it. And of course, you get the relationship between Vinyl and Octavia. In Season 2, we explore a lot about Blue Blood's character and his, Trixie and how they kind of get along, but not really.
Yeah.
And just seeing how the characters play with each other. If you ever heard an author say that, characters write their own dialogue at a certain point, if that ever happens to you, that's a really good sign that you're doing something right. And really, Vinyl Scratch Tapes, it didn't really start off with, a hardcore plan or anything. It just ended up being that I wrote the characters as I understood them, and it just ended up being really well. It's sort of discovery writing is what they call it. There wasn't really an outline from the beginning, but it ended up being, or at least I think it ended up being pretty good in the end.
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah, I do love the character interaction. You're right that. It does feel at times like it didn't take that. You're just that's how Vinyl would respond, and that's how Octavia would respond to that. And then Blue Blood comes in, and it just kind of writes itself.
Yeah.
So, what advice do you have for any pony listening who really wants to write fan fiction?
Well, one thing that I would recommend, and this is more like a do as I say kind of thing, not as I do. If you actually outline your things ahead of time, if you have a basic plan set out from the beginning, it ends up better. I wrote Season 2 of the Vinyl Scratch Tapes not knowing that I was ever going to write a Season 2, and I kind of wish that I had planned it that way from the beginning, because Blue Blood's character at the start doesn't really match up with how he goes later. I incorporated it pretty well, but it doesn't really exactly match up. I feel like if I had planned it out from the beginning, I probably could have done a more polished job with it. I don't think you should have an overly restrictive outline, because you always want to have that room to sort of like play around with your ideas and be creative. And one of the best things you can do creatively is, like, most of the best ideas are very spontaneous. Most of the best jokes in comedy writing are spontaneous as well. So if you just have if you have an idea of where you're going, I think it'll end up as a more cohesive whole. And another thing that I always tell other people who ask me about writing is the absolute worst thing you can ever do that will make people not like your writing is if you have a character do something that character would never do, but you have to make them do it for the plot. That will instantly be the one thing that readers complain about, because the plot may be important to the writer, but the characters are always more important to the person reading it. And it's very telling, because a lot of people, if you ever see like a popular series that does something unpopular, it falls into that trap where someone does something just for plot. Almost all the comments will be like, "What? They would never do that." And that's because these characters, the audience has become attached to these characters over time, and you never want to make them act the way they wouldn't. So always put like what your characters would do first. And if you think about it hard enough, you can make it so that the plot will work out as long as you stay true to the characters.
I can definitely agree, especially the first one. I actually had something like, I agree, you should have like a rough outline of what you're going to do, but then when you're sitting there writing, you're like, wait a second, she needs to get in the house, but the door, what if the door's locked? She has to like break the window to get in, and I could just end the scene with her looking at the window, and then the next scene, so why was it necessary to break my window? It's like, that's a lot funnier than having anything else. You know, it's just something you come up with, you're like, oh, that's funny.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that is a fun part of writing, is just that spontaneous, I can do this!
And I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, you go ahead.
I was saying it ends up working really well in Vinyl's scratch tapes, because Vinyl's character is just that she does very spontaneous things, so it ends up kind of working, especially if you have a character with an energetic personality like that.
Yeah. So, who are your favorite professional authors? See, comes around. And how did you think they affected your writing?
Well, it's interesting you should mention that, since we talked about it a few minutes ago. Terry Pratchett. I'm sorry, I didn't know that question was coming up later.
That's fine.
We used to give the authors coming on show notes, but then we realized it's more fun to blindside them.
I'm noticing you guys are having more fun doing that. Neil Gaiman is one of my all-time favorite writers, just because he is very, very good at world building, and he does world building. I know, that's one of my favorite books ever. That's my favorite book of his that he's done. Stardust is really good too. The book, not the movie.
I need to read that.
It's really good. I think you'd enjoy it. Yeah, he is very good at world building, and the way that he world builds is he never info dumps. Or if he does info dump, he does it in like a story within a story that it's like an info dump disguised as like dialogue or whatever. He's very good at just like not shoving world building in your face. Like, it just comes about naturally. And eventually it gets to the point where like most of the stuff can be inferred rather than someone outright saying it. Like in American Gods, like, since you brought that up, there is never a single line of dialogue where they say, it's just like, okay, we're the old gods based on like the old mythology, and the new gods are basically based on like the new things that, like, technology that people believe in. And basically the way gods manifest in America is that people who believe in the gods here, they sort of manifest as a different entity. He never outright says it. You just infer that just based on all that happens.
Yeah.
He never just comes out and says it. And it's very hard to do that, but he does it extremely well.
I definitely agree. I do love that about him. That did cause some flack, though, occasionally. Jim Butcher in his series Codex Alera, he ran into a problem with the first book where a lot of people didn't like it because he didn't explain at all. Like, he had this world, and you only learned by experience. And I really like that because there was no, oh, well, as you know, this is how the world works, blah, 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 blah. Because I think you recognize that that's really lame. And people, at least I don't like it when you hear that, oh, as you know, like, that line is just terrible. Like, you should, if you wrote that on your word processor screen, immediately hit backspace and write something else.
Unless you're making fun of that line.
Yeah, there you
unless
go.
you're making fun of it. Then if you use it for humor, you can kind of get away with, like, one of my favorite kinds of jokes is just, like, someone saying, like, someone comes up with an obviously bad idea and just, like, what could possibly go wrong, and everyone instantly realizes, oh, God, why did you say that? Now something bad is going to happen.
Yeah, the other thing we were going to, I think Sam was waiting for me to mention it, you came close, but you were another one of the very few authors on this show who did not mention Douglas Adams to that question. Because we had this part where it's a very common answer, but there was literally 3 weeks where each week they answered that first. And it was the most mystifying thing we've ever seen.
Quite so.
Well, Douglas Adams, I have read his stuff, and he is very funny, but I hate to say it like this because it seems like I'm downing Douglas Adams. I kind of respect Terry Pratchett more because he can make things humorous, but you still care about what's happening. Well, in Hitchhiker's Guide, at least in the first few books, it's more geared towards a vehicle for humor, and the characters, like, you grow attached to them, but in Terry Pratchett, like, the characters are in danger and you still care about it, but hilarious things are still happening the entire time. It never loses its humor.
I still need to read more Discworld. I've only read the first one so far.
What?
And I do love that. I do really love the first one, though. I mean, Rincewind is so awesome. And it's just hilarious. But yeah, I do need to read Thud and the one with the witches and the one with, like, the police force and, like, all these crazy, and all the ones about death. I understand I have to read them at some point, and I will. It's just, I'm going to get there sometime. But I absolutely love Douglas Adams. He's one of my favorites. He's just crazy.
I actually haven't finished reading all of Hitchhiker's Guide, and I really need to. I read the first 2 books, and then I stopped because I couldn't find a copy of the third one without buying the whole omnibus. And I'm just like, I just read the first 2 books, and I'm really cheap. I don't want to have to buy the whole omnibus. It's
hilarious because both me and my dad both own it. So we have our own separate copies of the omnibus. And so whenever we hear someone say they haven't read it, we're always like, here, take this. You'll thank us later. It works. It works very well. Okay, then. Go ahead.
If you wanted to read the Discworld stuff, Mort is a really good one. It's short like the first book is, and it starts getting into the stuff with, like, death and everything. So you'll that's a good one to,
right?
like, start it. Yeah, that's the third one, but it doesn't have anything to do with Rincewind. Rincewind makes, like, a cameo, but you don't have to, like, read them all in sequence.
Yeah. I just heard this. I saw, like, someone posted a paragraph that was, I think, the latest one that had Rincewind in it at all. And it's just him backing out from it in the best way possible, where he just explains, no, listen, I'm not going to do this, because what's going to happen is you're not thinking of having me do it now, but later you're going to come and ask me, and then I'm going to run away, and then I'm going to throw it away on a crate, and that crate's going to be loaded on an airship, and the airship is going to, like, attack the bad guy's fortress, and I'll end up having to save the day anyway, so I'm just telling you no, right now. And he's, like, not seen for the rest of the series, and it's like, I love that. Like, that character is perfect.
He was smart. He knows how his life is at this point. He's just like, he knows where this is going.
And now we shall move on. We'll discuss the week's theme, Vinyl and Octavia, either separately or lone fix. But I think we'll mostly be talking about, them as combined, which I don't know if you're the first, but I do know I think you're one of the first to go, hey, what if I put Vinyl and Octavia together? It's peanut butter and jelly combination. Because before that, it was just Vinyl was this DJ who was at a concert, I don't even know, at a runway thing at Rarity's Boutique. And then it was like, Octavia is this cellist who was at the Grand Galloping Gala who looked really cool and made funny faces at Pinkie Pie. And then they're like, wait a second, they're both musicians. And they're modern and classic. And if you put them together, you get craziness.
Yeah.
Fics were born. All of the fics.
Yeah.
Yes. At the time where I wrote the vinyl scratch tapes, I actually looked on Equestria Daily, because I don't think fanfiction was around at that time when I first read it, and it's hard to believe now, but there were surprisingly little fanfiction wrote with vinyl scratch in them. I think Octavia had like a few standalone fanfictions and so did vinyl, but there was, to the best of my knowledge, there wasn't any that had them interact before that. That's just to my knowledge. I'm not going to say that I started it because I really don't know.
So can I just say right now for that, thank you so much, because as we'll talk about later, we've gotten so much quality fan fiction from this. I mean, really, it's kind of crazy. And I just think it's it's the ultimate of the yin-yang kind of couple. There's these two characters that have a lot in common, and yet the personalities and everything else clashes so perfectly that you can take it however you want. You could play up the resistance, or you could play up the similarities. And that is a lot of what drives the differences between all the fics, is how much they drive the bickering, or how much they drive the love between them, or whatever you want to go with. And it's like a spectrum, and it's really interesting to look at them.
Yeah, and the funniest thing about the vinyl scratch tapes and the vinyl scratch Octavia pairing is that Octavia was almost not in the fic at all. She was an afterthought. When I thought of the idea, it just had vinyl in it, and the reason Octavia is in it is because I wanted to. I'm really good at writing dialogue and not that good at everything else, so that's why it's in script format, because I sort of, because it's a radio show, I sort of devised a way that I could just write dialogue and...
Brohoof.
I
envy you, sir.
Yep, smart going.
And what ended up happening is that if you have one person talking almost the entire story, it gets extremely boring, even though she has guests on the show and everything, so I was just like, what's another music-based pony that I can use? And I just look through the episodes and just Octavia, she's kind of popular. I'll just throw her in there, and they wouldn't get along because she's likes classical music and the other likes rock and roll and rap and everything. And just yeah, we'll run with that. What could possibly go wrong?
I think the other thing that's interesting to notice is they always change depending on is what vinyl actually does, like how famous she is as a DJ, whether she's doing it because she really loves it, or is it just a thing she's doing for the money. That always changes depending on the fic. Like with yours, she's just she almost sees herself as like a rebel or a martyr who's going out and doing her cause. She loves the music, man, and she's famous for it. But then other stuff we've had on before, we're going to talk more about later, Allegreza, when we had Coffee Grunt on.
Yeah.
And that, vinyl is only doing DJing for the money, and only, she needs to get by, and, she can do it decently well. It doesn't take that much skill, and that's the only reason she's doing it. And then, depending on the thing, it changes more and more. And I think it's one of the more, funny little dials you can twist when you're concocting your formula.
Yeah, and Coffee Grunt, I've actually talked with him a little bit. He actually read some of the later chapters. He pre-read some of the season 2 chapters of Vinyl Scratch tapes, so because him and I got to talking. And what I've read of Allegreza, he does it very well. I kind of like the direction he put it in. And I do like how he wrote vinyl in that way, because I originally hadn't envisioned her like that. So it's interesting to see other people's interpretation.
Well, I mean, that's what's really fun about because you can, especially Vinyl and Octavia, there's such blank slates that you can completely make your own. And everyone has their own vinyl and their own Octavia, and how they'll work together. And that's what's part of the fun of fan fiction, is how much do they bicker? What is Vinyl's exact personality? How crazy is she? How intelligent is she? Is she actually smart, or is how charismatic?
Yeah.
It's so interesting because everyone has their own version. That's what makes the world count.
Yes. This has been a public service announcement by the Brony Bookclub.
Yes. You had something? I think. One of you? Someone? Anyone?
What? No, I'm good.
You're good? Sam, you're good? Oh, okay.
I'm just being really quiet today, I guess. I don't know.
I guess we can move on. We're going to talk about the Vinyl Scratch tapes. That was honestly, that was one of the very first fanfics for this community I ever read, and it's part of what got me so hooked on the fanfiction was, what the hell is this? This is crazy. And I think it can ultimately be summed up at first, my biggest reason for loving it was Vinyl herself. And I think you could sum up, a lot of people compare her to Kamina from Gurren Lagann. I think it's a very fair comparison. But I think it's like if you took Kamina and you mixed him with Haruhi, and they formed some kind of weird meld, where it's like I think she almost has more in common with Haruhi. She's like almost completely sociopathic at points. And it's just like, screw everyone else. I'm doing what I want. What? Like, she never goes full crazy, but you're like, you feel at any time you don't know where she'll stop, and that's why she's kind of scary. Oh, go ahead.
I would say that the comparison to Kamina is pretty fair, because she was one of the inspirations for how she acts. Like, there is one point at the end of the first episode where she gives a speech that is Kamina. This is the spirit of radio. There are no limits. Thank you, TV tropes.
Yeah.
Round, fight the power.
Fight the power. Yeah. I was just going to say, and the thing that really got me from loving it just as really funny comedy to me going, wow, that's really great, was in Season 2, where you kind of deconstructed yourself. Where you kind of looked at what Vinyl had done and how we reacted to her and gone, no, that's not all right. She screwed up. She's almost as bad as Blue Blood, if not just as bad. And I was really impressed with that. That was really interesting. And you were the first person who tried to somewhat redeem Blue Blood for me. And I don't know if you've been able to tell from my avatars on stuff, since he's become one of my, if not my favorite pony, because, man, fanfiction writers can abuse the hell out of him and make it awesome.
Yeah, there's a lot of good content with him. I still need to finish reading The Best Night Ever, which was fantastic with what I've read so far. But,
have you read Teacher of No Class?
I have not, no.
Oh, I highly recommend that. I think Sam would too. Like, that's just,
yes.
It's wrapped up right now, but it's so awesome. It's just, it just gets to a point where you're just like, he just talked the monster to death in the best way ever.
It's a really great series.
It is.
Yeah, it's called Teacher with No Class.
Yeah, it's the first one, but it has 2 sequels, and the second sequel is about to end, and that'll be the end. As he said on our show just a couple weeks ago, go back and listen. Yeah. Shameless plug, yes. The Prince of Ponyville, which is the newest one, that is, I think we have 1 chapter left, but the chapter's going to be like 6,000 words. So, or I think more than, I think it's 6,000 words written, and now he's like still going. I'm like, go, come on, Dave, go, we need it. I'm going to cry horribly, but I need it.
Yeah.
Oh, God, that's going to be terrible. I'm going to be so sad.
Well, going back to what you said about how I kind of deconstructed Vinyl, like I said, there wasn't really that much planning with the overall plot when I first started, but I did have Vinyl's character thought out a bit from the beginning, and even from the start I tried to write her as like, when you look at her, she's really not that great of a person when she starts out. She gets more sympathetic over time, and you do realize that she is basically a good character, but some of her actions can be really insensitive, and you can, especially, I think it's best said like in the second episode where Octavia is just like, I don't know why I'm with this person. She's nuts. I don't understand why I'm here or why I put up with this, and it really comes off as true to heart, because really it's been funny what Vinyl's been saying, but she's really been like horrible. Just been like horrible to Octavia pretty much the entire fic up to that point. And she consistently is bad to Blue Blood, and it's only later on that you kind of see how he reacts to it. And I really enjoyed writing Season 2 just because of that, and it's just like, I have this character who nobody likes called Blue Blood. How has this affected his life? And you realize he's really not a very happy person, and I try to make people kind of feel bad for him.
I felt bad. I mean, really. But that's why what you're saying. That's why I drew the comparison also to Haruhi. It's when you start off, you're like, a lot of people, that's when I started showing that show to Sam, he's like, Haruhi is a bitch, she's just
that's kind of my problem with it so far.
Terrible person. The point is that they develop, and you see more of them, and they actually change and go, wow, what's important, what makes that kind of character great, what you did to Vinyl, and what Sam will see this Tuesday, is when you shove their actions in their face, and they admit that they were wrong, and they try to become better. Because that's what doesn't make them a villain, is when you point out and they go, oh man, I've been a horrible person, I should change.
Mm-hmm.
Because Scott Pilgrim lesson.
Oh yes,
exactly. Oh, I love Scott Pilgrim. That's a really good comic. The movie's good too.
Oh yeah, it's personally my only problem with the movie is it's a perfect adaptation as a movie, but my problem is it's a movie, and I'd rather they just made an animated series on like Adult Swim, and that would have been perfect. But instead we got that, which it's alright.
Yeah, I do kind of enjoy how they kind of they did something sort of different with the ending to surprise people who knew where the story went in the comic. Like, it didn't depart that far, but it was enough that you're interested.
Yeah, definitely. Well, it also the movie was being written as the 6th comic was being written. So they actually they took inspiration from each other. Like, the comic actually specifically took things from the movie. It's actually really interesting. Okay, let's get back on topic a little bit. Final scratch tape. I love what you did
more about how Scott Pilgrim's awesome.
Yeah. Don't worry, dude. It happens on the show all the time. In fact, it usually just means we have a good guest on who we can have fun conversations with. But honestly, that I also love what you do with Trixie, because I really don't. I like Trixie the best when you don't Draco and Leather Pants her, as a troper like me would put it. I don't like it when you go, oh, she's good. You're like, no. I love Trixie the most when she's being a horrible, horrible pony. And when you show her as that, that's when she's awesome. That's when she's at the most crazy cool. But when you try to make, oh no, but she feels sorry, and she went, no. Trixie does not feel this empathy emotion you to speak of. She is not capable of it. She is too busy thinking about herself. I mean, really. I mean, have you heard of Hostile Takeover?
I have not. What's that?
It's a fic where basically the idea is Fluttershy gets a job at a circus and has to room with Trixie trying to teach her showmanship while she's there, and Trixie just can't goddamn stand her. And it's Trixie. It's from her perspective, and it's Trixie very slowly growing a tiny conscience, and even then. And it's the only time I ever read a Trixie anything fic where I was like, besides yours, where I was like, okay, you actually got Trixie right. You managed to show her as the horrible, boasting person she is. Yeah, that's...
Trixie is... Go ahead.
No, I had nothing.
Trixie was actually one of my favorite characters to write for, because basically the way I wrote her is like, she's as smart as Twilight is, but without all the redeeming qualities that make Twilight nice. But
exactly.
even with that, I tried to make it so that none of the characters in Vinyl Scratch Tapes, I personally don't believe that anyone sees themselves as being evil, so I don't write.
Of course not.
So even Blue Blood, who is pretty close to that, no one actually sees themselves as evil. And Trixie, like, one of the funniest things is if you actually go back and look at the second season, Trixie is almost the sanest person there, and that's really sad. Because she's making
dude, Flim and Flam are pretty sane.
But yeah, but I kind of wrote her as she's what she says like about Vinyl and like how they treat Blue Blood and everything. I tried to make her have really good points. I go on TV tropes a lot too, and probably the reason why you suck speech is my favorite trope, which you can see that a lot in Vinyl Scratch.
Oh my god,
season.
you see it. Jeez, yeah, I think one episode was almost entirely that trope. She just kept doing it.
Yeah, that season 2, episode 3. That's probably that episode.
Yeah, I think that's it. Oh gosh, yeah, but it's a fun trope. We can excuse it. There's no problem. It's just awesome.
And Trixie is, she's. I write her as being very egotistical. She's very full of herself. She doesn't really care that much about other people, or if she does it in a way that she won't admit that she does. Like she probably internally considers herself friends with Blue Blood, but she'll be damned if she ever tells him that.
Exactly. So, wait, hold on. Sam, she's like Zula.
Oh, gosh. I can kind of see that. Except, you know what I've been realizing is that as you were talking, and then I looked it up to confirm that, I read this off of FimFiction, which only has up to part 2 of Season 2.
Oh, snap!
You were talking about things, and I was like, what? Wait, what? And then so I looked it up, and yeah, Equestria Daily has links to other stuff, but FimFiction didn't have the whole thing. So I'll be reading more of this later, that's for sure.
Okay. You better. It gets even better.
Oh, I will. Oh, no, I loved it. So, no, there's more of it now. That's cool.
Yeah, wait, so Sam, you've been a quiet person. You should give your thoughts on the fics.
Yeah,
at least you've read so far.
I guess I'm particularly tired right now. I also haven't read too much in the way of final Octavia fic, so I haven't had as much to say thus far. But no, I really enjoyed reading this. I mean, yeah, I guess I didn't read all of it yet, but not my fault. Yeah, no, I thought
well, that's okay. I
really liked the only other vinyl on Octavia fic that I had read before this was Allegrasia, for the episode where we interviewed that was Coffee Grunt, right?
Coffee Grunt.
Yeah. And so I don't have too incredibly much experience with the characters in particular, but I really liked the format, the script format. I mean, just there's something, I'm not even sure I can explain it, partially because, I'm really tired right now for some reason.
Je ne sais quoi?
What?
Je ne sais quoi? French for I don't know what?
Oh, yeah, sure.
It's pretentious as hell, but it works.
Yeah,
we don't
it
speak
does.
fancy here, Roy.
How dare you? But yeah, no, it just really made it so that there was some direction as to what their voices sounded like and such, but I felt like more so than a lot of things it was fostering my imagination of what was going on in a way. I could just imagine what they looked like when they were doing that, what they were doing and stuff like that. Because it didn't bother giving all the details, I could just fill that in myself, which was pretty awesome. And, it helps that the dialogue was fantastic. The banter was great and all that stuff.
Banter.
Yes, so much, so very much of it. And it was
I think,
awesome.
honestly, on the banter meter, you have the most banteriest, I don't know what the word I'm looking for is, of all vinyl Octavia fics, you turned that meter to the highest setting possible. Seriously, I don't know if it's even possible to go higher. Is there an 11 on this, baby?
These go to 11.
Do it anyway.
Go to 11.
Yep.
Why don't you just set 10 as the highest and make,
Yep.
Let's go to 11.
Oh.
I love Spinal Tap.
Me too.
Okay. But yeah, in any case, I really enjoyed reading it, and I thought you did a good job with the characters and such. But there's apparently a lot more that's good about them that I haven't read yet. So
that was my error. I actually haven't uploaded the rest of Season 2 on FimFiction because most of my audience looks at it through Equestria Daily, and I kind of forgot that I didn't put the rest of Season 2 on FimFiction, which shows how professional I am.
Well, here's a friendly reminder then. But yeah, I'll read it all. I'll read it all from Equestria Daily and finish it up.
Okie dokie Loki. So let's move on. Now we're going to talk about stuff that's updated recently. Now, I'm not asking you to start because we're going to do the banter back and forth with updates. But, so Sam, do you have any?
I was looking through and I don't.
Okay, so I guess I'm going to be talking to myself. That's going to be fun.
Yeah, sorry about that.
That had to go crazy.
I was hoping there'd be some updates that I read, but I didn't find any. Well, okay, no, wait. Apparently there's more vinyl scratch tapes than I knew, so does that count?
No.
Oh.
All right.
That updated some months ago. But
Monsieur Flower, do you have anything to say? Yes. Okay. So, first one is what I've never talked about on here before, because it hasn't updated until recently, is Third Time's a Charm by Raised Rainbow. Basic idea is I've never read this ship before, and I've been enjoying it. It's Rare Dash, I guess is what you'd... I know. I've been like, what? Rarity Rainbow Dash? What? I know. That was my thought, but so far it's very cute, and it has really good character moments. And this update was the same. I'm really enjoying it. It's an adventure fic as well, so far it's looking pretty good. I think it's only 4 chapters in. Yeah, I think the newest one's the 4th chapter. So, and then there's Accidental Harmony, which I won't talk about too much now. It's a Final Octavia fic, so I'll be back to that later. But I'll just say that for this chapter, very interesting direction from how the last chapter ended. Very funny, and I love how believable the characters are right now. And then last, Harmonics by Urza09, updated twice. If you don't remember, that's by the same person. That's the sequel to Discordant. And there's a weird gap between the chapters. I mean, really weird, kind of awkward. I was confused, but... Dash's reaction was really well done. Celestia was a badass as usual. Cliffhanger really, really leaves me excited for next week because apparently we're getting Celestia's Cutie Mark story. So, what? Awesome.
Interesting. Okay.
Interesting indeed. So, this question is usually the same, but Corey, did anything you read update lately?
I've actually been pretty bad with following fanfiction lately, just because I've been so busy with work and some other projects that I'm working on, which I might get a chance to talk about that later on here. But like I was saying before, most of the fanfiction I do read is just one shots. So unfortunately, I don't really. There's none that I can think of that I've updated recently.
Sam, add a tally mark.
Yeah, okay.
Almost every week. Almost every week, that's the answer.
Yep, something like it.
I think Kavonde was like one of the only guests we've ever had that was like, oh yeah, I read fan fiction. And we were like, what? An author who reads fan fiction? What is this?
Yeah.
It's funny you should say that because in my head was thinking just like, oh god, everyone's going to know that I don't follow any other fan fiction. I'm going to be...
every week.
Yeah, it's surprisingly common. Don't worry about it.
All right, so let's move on. So we're gonna talk about the week stuff, Vinyl Octavia fics, we're gonna start with Vinyl Octavia, and then we're gonna move to Octavia Vinyl. So Sam, first off, you
okay.
Are any of the fics would you say they're more vinyl? I guess Changes is more vinyl than Octavia.
Changes is very much more vinyl than Octavia. Yeah, Roy recommended that I read Changes. He apparently has only read a bit of it, but it came recommended, so he recommended I give it a shot. And a very, very interesting one in that as I said, I didn't have too much time this week, so I'm nowhere near finished. I'm only really I'm on chapter 4 or 5 now, but they are long chapters, so that's a good deal of reading in any case.
They're really long.
Yeah, and it's very, very vinyl-centric to the point where, very long chapters, and Octavia only gets any meaningful amounts of dialogue at the end of chapter 3. Like, she shows up briefly before then, but... So, really, in terms of the actual romance part of the fic, I haven't even gotten to it yet. But, thus far, Octavia seems pretty well written, but mostly it's been focusing on vinyl, and it's I'm really enjoying it, actually. It's one of the... It was interesting to see Lyra, and because, Allegrated... We were talking about this before we actually started recording earlier, how it seems like in Vinyl and Octavia fics, Lyra is an antagonist of some kind, and Bon Bon is usually the nicer one or whatever. In this case, though, they're actually both supporting characters and friends of Vinyl Scratch.
I didn't like that.
Yeah, and their characters are written well, and it's really like it gets into Vinyl's mind a lot. There's a good deal of it that's just kind of
her thinking and
and Vinyl's thoughts and learning just how she works. And it does a very good job for it. It's interesting, and I've been really enjoying it a lot. So, yeah, definitely more of a Vinyl than Octavia at first, at least. It's a lot longer than I've gotten, so I'm sure it becomes far more centered on both of them as time goes on, but yeah.
Yeah. So, then there's mine. My other Vinyl... Because, Vinyl Scratch tapes. Her name's in the title. It's a Vinyl Octavia fic. But we were talking about that. So, the other one, I talked about this a while back, and I've just mentioned it since then. I'm going to go back into what it is. It's Vinyl and Octavia University Days by Dawn Fade. I really like this fic. Basically, it's Vinyl and Octavia in college. And it starts off, they only share a psychology class together. And they just bicker back and forth. Like, they just can't stand each other in class. And so the professor's like, okay, everyone, take note, the conflicting personalities here. What we need to do, you two, I think will make good friends if you give it a chance. So, homework assignment, you have to spend time together in your free time. And they're like, oh, god damn, we gotta do this assignment, it sucks. And so they go do it, and then they just end up having a ball, and they just become really good friends, and they start dating. And oddly enough, Bon is very nice, and Lyra is a jerk, as we mentioned. It's a weird theme throughout these. But yeah, that totally happens. Though actually she does get character development, and that's really cool. But it is more violent than I'd say it's slightly more violent than Octavia, but it's after a certain point you really have to wonder about what's going on, because I don't know necessarily. Vinyl is you get to see how both of their mindsets towards the other, and they both think that the other is. How do I deserve you? Like, you are so much better than I am, and it goes more Vinyl with that, where Vinyl is just always trying to hide any of her weaknesses and trying to act all. The reason she acts all cool and stuff is because she thinks she sucks, and she's like she's like Octavia, without meaning to, does like the perfect thing every time, and she's like, I don't even understand how. This is insane. But then you can hear, you can just see Octavia's thoughts. You're like, she's thinking almost the same thing. And it's generally really funny. It's actually very low on the banter meter after the initial chapters. Once they actually start becoming friends, the banter very much kind of tapers off. But it's still really funny. And it's more than anything just really heartwarming. And then recently the other thing everyone really enjoyed, where when it got to the part in their relationship where they would start having sex, he just started another story that each chapter would link to, where it's like, listen, if you don't, this is where the chapter's going to go, but if you don't want to read that, you can skip it and nothing of plot importance will happen and you won't miss anything. And that, I really appreciate that. That is a really interesting way to do it. Yes. Yeah, so I really, really recommend Vinyl Octavia University Days. And there's also several songs based off it, and they're awesome. So definitely look that up. So Corey, do you...
I was just saying University Days. I had seen that one update before, but I hadn't actually read it. Although what you said makes me really interested to read it. It sounds like a pretty good interpretation.
It is. So, do you have anything Vinyl Octavia related, or just Vinyl related in general?
Just as far as other fan fiction that I have read that involves the two of them, Allegreza is really good. Like I said, I've actually talked with the author of that before, and he does a really good job. So if anyone is interested in that shipping pair, then I think you should read Allegreza as well if you haven't read it yet.
Funny you mentioned that, because that was what I was going to talk about next. Yeah, again, Allegreza, I have that more as an Octavia Vinyl fic. I think it's slightly more Octavian than Vinyl, but yeah, I mean, it's a very equal union, if anything.
It's very balanced.
It is. I really enjoy that one. We had the author on before, as we mentioned, for our shipping episode a while back, really far back, actually, I think like episode 4 or 5. Yeah, so we've talked about it a ton already, but we'll just say, yeah, incredibly well written. So much. Very much, the substance is good, but the style is what really makes it, I think. The writing style is really well done. And another fic where Bon is very nice and Lyra is a jerk.
Yep.
I have no idea why they keep doing that. It actually kind of ties into another thing I'm going to talk about in a little bit, but I'm going to work up to that. The other one I have that's Octavia related is Accidental Harmony, which I mentioned update earlier, so I better explain what this is. So, Accidental Harmony, the basic idea being what starts off, it's right after the Grand Galloping Gala. And because of the whole Pony Pokey incident, Octavia is pretty much out of work. No one wants to hire her, because they were blamed for it. So, at this point, has her this month's rent paid, but there's nothing for next month. She hasn't eaten in about 5-6 days. She has no food left, but her agent keeps telling her, well, I have this one job. The DJ needs an assistant, and she's like, I'm not going to stoop to that. I'm not going to stoop to that. She's like, I have to eat. I guess I have to. And so she meets Vinyl, and they hit it off pretty well. And when Vinyl finds out about her situation, she's like, oh, really? Oh, snap. Yeah, I need to help you. You definitely need it. So they become really good friends, and then eventually start dating. And what's really interesting is, I guess the way to put it, that especially Sam would appreciate, it very much in a way seems like After Story to me. Clawnaut After Story. In that it goes with the dating, but after a certain point, I felt it was hard to tell with this one that they were dating after a certain point. Like, it just felt like, bam, they're doing, there wasn't a good indicator that they were doing so, which I wouldn't say is a big flaw, but it was just kind of interesting. But what was really interesting is just them moving on with their life and having to deal with things.
Yeah.
I won't say what, but something happens to Vinyl's club, and so they're left with, what are we going to do next? And they get into fights, and they have to deal with that. And it's really, it very much feels like, wow, this is like real life. This is crazy. Bringing that into a ship fic? What?
Huh. I'm all for that.
I really recommend it. It's still updating. Apparently we have one more chapter left. Another fic, I'm like, what? One more chapter? You jerk. How dare you do that? But Accidental Harmony by Errant. And it's another one, I don't know how many of them done this, where we have to think of a last name for Octavia, and this one chose Philharmonica, which I do like that as a last name. That's a funny last name. Octavia Philharmonica. I highly recommend this one. It is very good. I'm enjoying where it's going. So that's that one. So, Sam?
Yeah, I do have one more. I was going to be looking for more, but...
Time.
Yeah, basically. And again, all the ones I finally have changes is really long, and this one's really long, too. I'm not too far in it yet, either. But I'll see what I did was, knowing that, that this is Vinyl Octavia, and most of the stuff was going to be romance fixed with them, I decided that I wanted to be different. Because, yeah, I don't know, I guess I'm a hipster like that sometimes. So I decided that I was going to go on to FimFiction and use because, they have filters on there that you can use to, say what types of things you want to be looking for. And so I went on there and told it, since most of things seem focused on Vinyl, I told it to find fics that had Octavia and not Vinyl, just to see if there was actually anything that Octavia did in this fan fiction community that wasn't involving Vinyl Scratch. And I found an interesting one, to say the least. It's very... interesting. I use that word like a crutch a lot, I know, but it's called Octavia Takes the Bus, and it actually takes a very... It's tagged with tragedy, sad, and slice of life, which I'd say... and alternate universe, because, buses and all that stuff doesn't exactly exist in traditional Equestria. But, it's very much, tragedy, sad, and slice of life. It's a very serious look at Octavia. It brings up some issues that she has and some things that she has to deal with, and it's just about how her car, just completely died, and it's actually something with some sentimental value and stuff. It goes into her family life, which is pretty awful, and she's actually seeing a doctor to try and help her sort through it, and he suggests that, it's like she doesn't want to take the bus. She hates the idea of, because they're all dirty and there are weird people on them and stuff, which I can relate to, because, seriously. But
I really like buses, but whatever.
they're interesting, I'll give them that. But yeah, so her doctor recommends that she keep a journal, and just describing her experiences. And so what this ends up being is her journal of, like, we just read each, we read each entry in her journal as she meets various characters from the show and just kind of things happen, and it's really interesting. It also tends to, like, it doesn't... I was surprised to see her interaction with her bandmates is not positive in this one, necessarily. Like, the leader of it, Frederick, at least, is a complete jerk. Which is just an interesting take on it in general. It's a much more serious and tragic in some ways take on Octavia than I've seen. Which is really interesting, and I will certainly be reading more of it. It's decently long, but,
Okie dokie Loki.
So yeah, interesting stuff.
Interesting stuff, yay!
Yeah.
Alright, Cord, do you have anything else before I go into the last one?
I have seen Octavia Takes the Boss before, but I hadn't read it all. It sounds really interesting. I kind of want to read that. I have a lot of things to read now.
Oh, yeah, trust me. We have folders of stuff to read. It's fun.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Well, this podcast has a good name. It's a book club, so it's good to have a lot of things to read after this.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So, I move on to the fic I read for this week. It's the only thing I was able to read between episodes, oddly enough. Because it's kind of long. It's called A Tale of Two Mayors. Actually, now I have to look up... I'll be back with the author in a second because I completely screwed up and forgot to find the author's name, and I'm an idiot. But, so I actually took notes while I was reading, so I have a lot... So first of all, it's I'd say it's mixed towards the good side. There's some bad stuff, but there is a lot of good. On the bad side, really quickly, the first thing that comes up is the grammar and spelling has a lot of problems. Not My Immortal level, but about 2 to 3 times.
Oh gosh.
2 to 3 times a chapter, you'll be like, the word is misspelled in a way where it looks like another word at first. You have to pay attention. Oh, by the context, it's supposed to be this other word, and you just misspelled it. Okay, that's what happened, and that gets a little annoying. That really gets annoying. Then as I went through it, I came across first very good vinyl dialogue. I mean, really good. Oh yeah, I should probably just. The basic plot idea is that. One day out of nowhere, Octavia goes to her local bar that she usually goes to, and finds this really annoying DJ is playing there. She's like, "Oh, this place is usually quiet. Why do you have a DJ now?" And then after she's trying to just sit at the bar, have a drink, and then after her show, the DJ comes up to her, like, "Yeah, hey," he starts hitting on her, and she's just like, "Oh God." She's just, "Oh, why are you even talking to me?" So the next day she does it again, and this time actually. Buys her drinks. She's like, "Oh, I guess I might as well. It's a free drink, whatever." Gets totally sloshed, and then as they go to walk home, Octavia's house is burned down. And so this is something that's really, I don't know how to put it. I wouldn't say it is necessarily bad. It's just very off-putting for me. It moves very fast early on. At other points, it moves very fast. Because it goes to, "Oh yeah, your house burned down. Next chapter. Well, they go through it like, "Oh, well, you can live with me now. That'll be okay." She's like, "Okay, I guess I could live with you." And and Vinyl keeps hitting on her. Next chapter, several months later, and they're dating. And I'm like, what? There's intermittent time between these things. What happens? I don't even... What? Yeah. And it does that a couple times, where it's just time skip. And I'm like, you could have explored the area in that time. But okay. Another really weird thing, just something I'm not used to, is the short chapters. Chapters range from being about 700 words to several of them are like 4,000, but most of them are at most 2,000. I'm like, really? Like, most of the things I read have at least 2,000 words an update. What is going on? This is weird. But then let's go into some of the really good stuff, besides the really good vinyl dialogue. The idea is... there's an idea like Octavia has to wear glasses, but she just uses contacts. I think that's really cool. That fits her pretty well.
Yeah.
The
that's
character
actually briefly
interaction
mentioned in Changes too, which I found interesting.
Huh. The character interaction in general is very well done. Okay, I just wrote a little note of just what is Celestianity? What?
What?
Okay, and.
Really?
I know, and it leads into the next point. There's an extended subplot around the middle. that is a subplot. I think several of the fics we've talked about have done this as well. And this is the one that did it more for dramatic stuff and actually had some good storyline with it, but it still irks the hell out of me, is the whole homophobia subplot. Where basically Octavia's parents find out and they're Celestianists and they're like, what? How we'll disown you if you don't quit, and she's like, fuck you, you're not my parents. She's like, no, you disown me, I disown you, screw you, which I was like, that's a good way to take it. But in general, I really don't like that as a subplot for these kind of fics. I really don't. I think there are so many other ways you could take it, and that is generally not... I understand why you would want to do that, because there are something like your parents disapproving of you in that way. I have friends who... in fact, I have a cousin. My uncle has told my cousin, who I'm very close to several times, if she ever... told him, like, she isn't gay as far as she knows, but if she came out to him, he would completely disown her. He's made it very clear. And that's dickish. That's an incredibly dickish thing. And I completely hate... I really don't like people like that. But part of the point of stuff like this is it's fantasy. And I don't mean in the, escapist, you don't have to worry about it. I'm saying that in this kind of thing... you don't have to generally... It's like if you had a fic, and part of the fic was paying the bills was a huge issue. And I'm like, yes, you could kind of make that into interesting drama, but we don't want to read about that. We want to read about other things. We want to read about, oh man, like there's this interesting rivalry going on, or this guy's trying to shut us down. Like, those are interesting things to read about. But things that we actually have to deal with on day-to-day life like that are just complete. We don't want to be reminded that exists. We don't. And that's why it's fantasy. If you want your thing to be like real life, write about real life. But this isn't the real world. As far as we've seen, homophobia is not a problem in Equestria, and you're bringing it into this world where it wasn't before. And that annoys the crap out of me. So oddly, I would say really quick, what I do find funny is later when Octavia's mom, who's the really big annoying one who's doing most of it, she confronts Celestia herself about it. Celestia's like, I never said I had a problem with gays. Shut up. Basically, like in less words. And I was like, it's like, you guys did that without consulting me. I don't know what to tell you.
Wow.
Which, that's very funny. That was very funny. Oh, and a good note, her parents are named Sonata and Crescendo, and those are really good names.
Huh,
I really like.
Oh my god, those are really good names. I'm actually kind of jealous that I didn't come up with those.
Yeah, seriously.
But besides that, in that area though, where they are fighting like that, and there is that stuff going on, when I was reading, I mean, there's a really good emotional connection. I mean, I was like getting pissed at my computer screen, like, how dare you do this to me? You better not screw this kind of thing up. And I can at least say, like, well, I don't like that was the drama. At least you pulled off the drama well enough that I gave a crap. So, really good on you there. Oh, God. Okay, and then right after that, there was a twist kind of thing, / revelation. The content wasn't that okay, but the delivery really needed work. It was done really fast, and then it was immediately like, that doesn't really matter. And you went, yeah, that didn't matter. Why was that in this at all? It was like there was a interesting end of chapter thing, and it was like, no, that didn't matter at all. Sorry.
I think there is a tendency with a lot of writers who... A lot of movies now are popular where they have like a twist ending at the end. You see it a lot in the horror genre. And I think a lot of authors, like, maybe they don't consciously think it, but they feel like you have to have a twist at the end of the story to make it worth going through all that. But when you just shoehorn a twist in there that really didn't need to be there, then it just comes off as awkward and like you said, not important.
Newsflash, you are not Stephen Moffat.
Yeah. No, that's something people often forget, is it's rare that one can just put in a plot twist to make things interesting. I mean, like, The Sixth Sense, as an example, was brilliant, but that's because it was built around the plot twist. You know, the whole movie is defined by that moment, that revelation. It's different. You can't just chuck one in your story and think it'll make it better.
What I do like, though, is there's a fake ending, less than halfway through the thing, where it comes to that point where her mom shows up and she's like, listen, I'll be willing, I thought about it, I might be willing to forgive. And then it says, note, if you want to have a really shitty happy ending, you can I'll have this thing here that you can consider the ending, and you can enjoy that crappiness. Or you could go with the real ending, which I will continue from. And it was very Snicket-esque, and I really liked that. Because, it's a happy end of, oh, but you're my daughter, and I guess I'll put up with it for now, I'll accept you back. We can have a good heartwarming together. And it's like, yeah, that's shitty. And then it's just like, no, actual ending. Far, far, far worse. So much, oh god. Screw this chick. She's horrible. And then there's another thing to talk about. There was a horrible science fail. And I mean in-universe science fail. Where, okay, and it's one of those things where sometimes I go, okay, continuity error isn't always bad. If it serves the plot in some way, maybe I could see it. Except it's a completely useless one, where if you couldn't tell, if you look this fic up, the page image shows them with their child. So you understand that they have a child together. And what happens is, Twilight has developed a spell that allows that to happen, where you just take DNA and then you have the mom, and all of a sudden, boom, she's pregnant. It's like, wow, you're in a magical universe. Of course, that makes sense. That's actually really interesting. What doesn't make sense is her reasoning for the spell. Apparently, something like that already existed for gay couples, and it didn't exist for couples of different races. Before that, different races could not get pregnant together in any way. And I was like, bullshit! There is an episode called Baby Cakes, in which the Earth ponies have a Pegasus and a unicorn child. Bullshit!
That makes sense, right?
Yeah, no, so I'm like, and so at the same time, I'm like, I could accept as a continuity error, except you didn't need to explain it that way. You could just say, oh, this is the first time gay couples could ever have children. And boom, no problems had. Why did you do that? But after that, I had to write, the adorableness levels of their child was dangerously high. I mean, wow, dangerous high. I mean, the DAWs, I did it to my computer. It was, I don't know, I'm surprised I can even make any other sound but that anymore. It was so adorable. It's almost, it's so good. Celestia was really funny, and then it completely stuck the landing. I think it's ultimately what makes it so great, is that the ending was fantastic. And I can't wait to read the sequel, because there's a sequel, and I really want to read it. But so overall, yes, it has quite a few flaws, and yet it's very funny and with great character interaction, and is adorable, and has some good drama at points. So I really recommend it. As weird as it is to say, but yes, I highly recommend this.
It's definitely very interesting, even if they didn't pull off all the portions of the story well, and especially the time skips. I haven't read it myself, but it seems like if you time skip, I kind of feel like that almost cheats the reader out of seeing character development, unless it's warranted where really nothing much has happened in that period of time. When you skip important things happening, I can understand why some authors do that, because when you think of a story, you want to get near to the end where better things happen, but that's probably not the best way to go about it. But aside from that, it sounded pretty interesting. So I can understand.
The author's Charming Chaos. Okay, Charming Chaos.
Okay.
Yes, I enjoyed your story, so don't yell at me. Yes. Sequel is called How to Raise a Filly, so I will be reading that. That'll be awesome. So yeah, that's that. Oh, so you said you have some upcoming projects you'd like to talk about, Corey, or something like that?
Yes. Well, first of all, since you guys weren't aware of it, I'll plug these guys as well. There's actually an audio adaptation of the vinyl scratch tapes.
I am actually aware of that. I listened to all of those. Those are amazing.
Oh, okay. They're currently working on the adapting the second season, and I've actually had the pleasure of talking to those guys, and they're doing a really good job. They're all a pleasure to work with. I'm also writing another sort of an audio series, but it has still pictures in it as well. It sort of has limited animation, kind of like Rainbow Dash Presents. It's called News Ponies. where it's basically, it takes place 15 years from the present day in Equestria, like when the show takes place, and it's about a 24-hour news station in Equestria, because they've advanced to the point where they've developed TV like magic, similar to how I explain in Vinyl Scratch Tapes, like radio exists, but it's powered by magic instead of electricity. And if you actually go to newsponies.tumblr.com, you can actually see a lot of concept art about that. We're actually in the process of doing callback auditions now, and I think it's going to be really interesting. It's going to be strictly an audio and animation show, so it's not going to have the written parts published, but what we're doing is pretty exciting. So I check that out if it sounds interesting. That's newsponies.tumblr.com.
Okie dokie Loki. That sounds awesome. So, I'm glad you mentioned that Antipodes actually has an audiobook, so I'll be having to listen to that now. I can actually find out about that frickin' story.
Yeah, I like I said, some of the people who work on the Vinyl Scratch Tapes master recording actually, they actually work on that, and I feel bad that I haven't listened to it yet.
I absolutely love the people who do that, by the way. The Vinyl Scratch Tapes audio is incredible. All of them. Like, I just like, wow, you nailed it perfectly.
Yeah, they did a really good job, and there's actually specific parts that aren't in the original fic that are still written by me because they asked me to do it. Like, in the first episode, there's a commercial that wasn't in the actual fic, and there's a Christmas episode that I wrote as well. So if you've read the Vinyl Scratch Tapes, there's a little bit of additional content in there.
That commercial was hilarious.
Yeah, the person who does the voice of Al Capone is Scriber, and I feel bad that we haven't gotten him to do more voices because he runs with crazy characters really well.
Okay, so now it's time for emails. We have one email this week. It's from our old friend Cody Fett. So I'm going to not read all of it, but I'm going to read most of it because he complains. My emails aren't that long. I timed this one to be about 4 minutes, 53 seconds spoken, with stumbling. Wow, that sounded a lot less sad before I wrote it out. And how dare you misrepresent my position on My Little Dashie? I'm neutral, leaning towards negative. I did not like it. I'm like, well, sorry, dude, sorry. Maybe you shouldn't have said that when we had the author on last week, dude. Now that that's out of the way, I suppose I should talk about the next episode. Mainly, I'm surprised you guys are moving on from genre themes already, especially when you still have several more to go. In fact, off the top of my head, you're missing family, science fiction, fantasy, and military. All right, first of all, he asked, like, do those sound foreign to y'all? And I'm like, no, those don't sound foreign. But I don't think, as a My Little Pony podcast, we have to talk. I'm going to go through family. There's pretty much a tag for it already. It's called normal. We did it. Science fiction. We're going to do a Doctor Who's episode later, so don't worry. Fantasy. Fantasy. It's called My Little Pony. They use magic. It's fantasy. And military. I'm sure there are some military fics out there. I really don't want to read those. Sorry. We're not doing those.
Interested, maybe, but I wasn't aware of their existence. Beyond that, though, we defined genres by tags, right? I mean, there might be other genres we could do, but tags makes it so that what we talk about and what we recommend to people is easy to categorize. So genres beyond that, I think, doesn't... Oh, what is that?
Grimdark. And I don't think we're going to... The only way we'll ever do a Grimdark
that's fine.
episode... The only time we'll ever do a Grimdark episode is if we can get Captain Sprinkles, who wrote Cupcakes. That would be a fun interview. But
why would we do that? We spent a few episodes ago ranting about how much we hated that.
But that's why it would be great to have him on.
I want to... I kind of am interested to see what that guy would have to say about it, because I'm curious to see how that came about.
Oh, boy. Okay, set it up if you want to, Roy. But anyway, Grimdark is the antagonist. I'm okay with that. And then
he goes on, says that he actually really doesn't like Fanon. He enjoyed Epic Club Time, but besides that, not even Derpy and Dinky bring joy to him, apparently. I think, Sam, this might be Brenton in disguise. Because... Actually, no, Brenton likes Derpy, so...
Brenton loves Derpy, yeah, never mind.
That's the only...
We have a friend who generally doesn't like a lot of things like this, but...
Huh.
He likes My Little Pony, but he doesn't like any of the background ponies except for Derpy. It's really weird.
Yeah. Well, he tends not to... He didn't like Toph. We watched Avatar: The Last Airbender, and he didn't like Toph. I have no freaking... I just don't know.
I don't either.
I don't...
Yeah.
Toph is a great character. Why? Why would
Oh,
you
yeah.
not like her?
Because he does
And so
like cool.
he has no vinyl scratch stories to recommend. He does mention some ones he wants to recommend, but I'm like, dude, I'm very sorry. One of them is Of War and Friendship, Star Wars crossover thing. Okay.
Wait, what?
Well, I know. It could be cool. I'm just
So
saying.
you say
dude,
Star Wars crossover, my ears are perked up. So what is that?
I know you love. It's look it up yourself because I'm telling you right now. This episode is about Vinyl Scratch and Octavia. I'm not gonna read out your fics that you send in unless they fit the week's theme. I'm sorry. I'm gonna mention them. I'll mention the other one, which is Super Women of Ava 2, The Lone Heir of Krypton, a DC Comics and Evangelion crossover. What the fuck? I don't even... What? Okay, so... Yeah, so he... Basically, he wants us to continue work. Six Semper Tyrannis, carry on. I have no idea.
Okay, cool.
I'm
yeah,
kind of
so-
interested
Telling us
in
to
that
continue.
Eva fanfic. I'm kind of interested in that Eva fanfic because I want to know how those two things mesh together.
Okay, I just
Because
realized
they really
this.
don't.
Corey, you might be the only one who not only the only one on this conversation right now, but the only one who ever listens to this who'll get what I'm about to say. But there needs to be a My Little Pony El Gunishive crossover so
There
badly.
does. There really does.
Someone needs
because
to write it. Someone. We need to do it, man.
Their characterization, considering their characterization is is the focus in both of those shows, I think you could actually make it work. And the guy who writes El Gunishive, I know he's aware of the show because
I think he's a
jokes
brony.
about it.
I'm
I think
pretty sure he's a
I think he is too, and that would be great. I would. People listening, read El Gunishive because that really is a good comic.
Please, I know it's shameless, but we have to plug it, dude. Okay, it's a webcomic. It's very weird there, but it's awesome. It has incredible character development. It's hilarious. And I basically recommend just start at, like, Hidden Genesis, I'd say, somewhere around there. Or, I actually don't know where exactly to start, but find a place, start, and read. It is so funny, and you'll completely love it. I'm pretty goddamn sure. So, if you want to send us if you want to send us an email and have it read out on the show and all that kind of stuff, like happens to Cody Fett every single week, apparently, send it to the Brony Bookclub at yahoo.com. Send us your comments, questions, concerns, criticisms, or maybe offer some help, because I'm having audio problems and stuff, and that'd be really nice if you could help me with that, because I know nothing of this stuff of which you speak. So that is pretty much it for this week. So next week, this is very tentative. I haven't planned that far ahead, sadly. We're not sure exactly what we're doing next week, but hold off on this. We might be doing alternative media and having on the person who's doing Buck the card game, which looks awesome. So that might be what we're doing. I hope it is, because that looks cool. The guy who does it has said he wants to, so that's might be what we're doing. So alternative media, that'll be fun. Corey, it was great to have you on.
Oh, it was great to be on here. I had a lot of fun. You guys have I enjoyed the banter on here.
Banter.
Good to hear.
See, we've brought it full circle.
Full
circle. Watch Adventure Time.
We're like airbenders, man.
What? Oh.
This podcast has turned into...
It's a joke because airbending is based off of a martial arts style used by the Circle Warriors historically.
Really?
Yes, I have too much time. All right, so that is it for this week. Hope to see you all next week. Bye.
Yeah.
Bye.
Bye.